Hello everybody, I'm Chad Booth, your host for the county seat. Today our topic is going to be land swaps. Now, barter is the oldest form of commerce. You know, in the olden days, long before money existed, if you had something somebody wanted and they had something that you wanted, you guys would work out a barter and you'd exchange it. Well, that's pretty simple between two individuals, but when it comes to organizations that own land, it becomes much more complicated. That's our topic today. But to bring you up to speed on it, let's take a look at a primer on how land exchanges take place.
Trust lands were given to the state in a checkerboard pattern. Generally every 2nd, 16th, 32nd, and 36th section of a township is state trust land. These 1 square mile sections are used to generate money for Utah schools. Some trust lands have been placed in areas so remote that there are no opportunities to develop the land. The idea being discussed in San Juan County is to take those scattered state sections and swap them for larger blocks of federal lands so that the state sections are all blocked up into a larger parcel, allowing for development and revenue-producing activities.
In our mind, as a possible scenario, some of those state sections that have probably very little prospect for being developed over the long term could be swapped for land where there's more potential for development.
We could get out of almost all of that land and not really be giving up too much in the way of minerals. And instead, if we concentrated our land holdings in the northern part of the county around Lisbon Valley, which is already pretty much dedicated for mineral development. If we could concentrate our land holdings there, we'd be a lot happier. I think the environmental community would be a lot happier. And I think even the county is favorable to that type of an approach.
Land exchanges have benefits beyond the money they generate for Utah school children. The industries that lease trust lands bring jobs too.
High-end jobs, they're good-paying jobs, they're the sorts of jobs that a family can subsist on here in our county. And so, those are the type of jobs and economic development that we're really eager to enable here in the county.
For 2 decades, SITLA has been blocking up trust lands in the areas that have greater development potential and getting them out of sensitive federal lands, such as national parks, monuments, and wilderness. And while the counties aren't part of the land exchange agreement between the federal government and the state, their involvement can lead to better land planning decisions.
We're just hopeful that we can try to facilitate this process. We think it's a critical component of any comprehensive lands bill or public land solution for our county is that these state sections, especially the ones that are scattered out throughout lands that might be permanently locked up with any wilderness or other designation, that something be done to address that and make sure that the school children of the state of Utah are the beneficiaries of revenue from that land into the future.
Not everyone is as excited about the state trading its land out of proposed wilderness areas. The thought being that keeping the status quo may prevent those areas from being designated as wilderness.
Let's look at the resources, identify the objectives, and make sure that there's not an ulterior motive here that is basically to get these trust lands out of wilderness study areas so that those can just be declared wilderness. Those state trust lands give us an anchor out there in the middle of federal property that we really should think twice before we give it up.
For the county seat, I'm Derek Dowsett.
Well, now you're up to speed on what is being proposed. Let's find out what the problems are and get into that discussion when we come back. We'll be back after this commercial break right here on the county seat.
Industry is the symbol of Utah. Beauty is what makes it unique. Nowhere else are these 2 qualities exemplified, like in Uinta County. Oil and gas extraction, pioneer history, the spirit of hard work and integrity that feed our state. Built in the middle of the most spectacular backdrop in the West, isn't it time you found the balance you've been looking for? Uinta County, Utah, where industry meets inspiration.
rediscover your sense of adventure. Welcome to San Juan County. Discover the past. A change of place. Utah's San Juan County, where life is elevated.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. SITLA manages 3.5 million acres of Utah lands with the express purpose of furthering the education of Utah students while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development, all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, we distributed more than $22 million to Utah schools last year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is land swaps. In particular, our focus is San Juan County. Joining us is the Associate Director of School Institutional Trust Lands, John Andrews, and also Bruce Adams, County Commissioner from San Juan County. Gentlemen, thank you for making the trip. As I have heard discussions about land swaps, it sounds like some of these swaps actually that are taking place around the state might be multi-county swaps where you're actually trading sections in one county and what you will end up getting are in another county. Is that actually true?
That is true. In the last 3 big land exchanges that SITLA has worked on, they've been multi-county. Typically, SITLA is looking for land that has got mineral production potential. So we traded, for example, out of the Grand Staircase National Monument in Kane and Garfield County and have traded into land in Carbon and Emery counties that's got natural gas production.
And, you know, we alluded to in the story that coming with those exchanges are jobs, and jobs bring taxes to help run the county. How do you deal with that if the swap takes it out of the...
The legislature has actually set up a revenue equalization statute that allows some of the money to flow back to the counties where the lands were traded out. So it's meant to keep some of the revenue fairly equal and not penalize the counties that have got large areas of potential wilderness.
What's your take on all of this, Bruce?
Well, in San Juan County, we have about 400,000 acres of wilderness study area that includes up to maybe 100 SITLA sections inside those wilderness study areas. And it seems sensible to me that we would consider taking those sections that are spotted throughout the wilderness study areas and are being managed as wilderness and block those up in an area where there is mineral potential. And we think that in San Juan County there is mineral potential for oil, gas, and potash in the northern part of San Juan County that could greatly benefit the county and our citizens if a land swap was made and those minerals were allowed to be extracted.
When trades like this come up, always there are groups that come out of the woodwork. You know, what are the challenges in say, this particular land swap?
I think we believe that in San Juan County, almost every side of the political and environmental debate is going to find something to like, because the putting SITLA lands that are in scenic and wilderness quality areas into federal ownership is going to be pleasing to the environmental community. At the same time, the lands that SITLA is looking to acquire generally do not have a lot of environmental concerns. So we think this can be a win-win for everyone. There may be some quibbling around the edges of the property as to specific properties, but in general, we think it's something that everyone will like.
Some of these lands are landlocked, but aren't there right-of-way accesses that have to be maintained to get to the SITLA land?
Well, SITLA, the state, has a legal right to access all of the scattered sections, even if they are in a wilderness study area. We have chosen to not be bulldozing roads into the wilderness in the interest of trying to make a swap possible, but that possibility is out there, and I think the environmental community recognizes that it is better to cooperate and negotiate than to get into the sort of situation, the conflict, where we would be out trying to sell off all of those scattered sections and creating access.
Well, actually, if I understand it, SITLA is more concerned about finding ongoing revenue as opposed to just disposing and selling of it.
That's true, but we do periodically sell land, and some of those scattered sections do have interest for cabin sites and that sort of development. So that is an option if, in the long run, a land swap like this doesn't take place.
There is some concern that has been expressed, and I've heard it before, that if you trade out these sections, we're already seeing transportation plans that have traditionally been established in counties for years through the forests, through the BLM, significantly reduced. And some counties are very concerned about the fact that they're losing their transportation infrastructure with these land closures. And I think that might be what's being alluded to in saying, well, we got to make sure that we know what we're giving up. Is that a concern at the county level?
Access is always a concern at the county level. The counties have been pretty aggressive about asserting their RS 2477 rights on roads on federal property. And in fact, San Juan County has been one of the leaders in documenting the rights that we have on RS 2477 roads, showing the use, the historical use on these roads to assert that right. And so, you know, it will always be something that we're concerned about, and it might be the primary concern that we have in our county because of the large amount of federal property we have in the largest county in the state of Utah.
Is this, you know, a herring, or is this a real and legitimate concern that some of these trust lands go away and it might have an impact on transportation?
We might have the ability to create new roads because we have a right of legal access, but if the lands are in a wilderness study area, typically they are not accessible, so the exchange of those lands shouldn't have a major effect on access for the user community.
Bruce, are you concerned, changing directions here a little bit, that while there would be some mineralogical severance taxes that San Juan County would generate, and of course your swap is, you're talking about county in county.
Right.
So if it were an out of county, though, there would still be the issue of sales tax and jobs and that's sort of the side of commerce that would go away to the other counties. Is that addressed at all in that exchange?
Well, again, we have been looking just inside San Juan County, but the wilderness study lands are not generating a lot of jobs right now, so any revenue and any jobs are a net positive. And that's one of the reasons that we've been working on these, is we have been able to generate a lot of economic development in the rural counties as a result of these exchanges. We've got big energy project in Delta, some mining projects in the West Desert from past exchanges. It is something that we hope we can repeat again and again.
Bruce, what do you think the potential is of this land swap for San Juan County?
For San Juan County, the potential just in potash is an investment in the county of $2.4 billion, 2,500 construction jobs over a 3-year period, and about 190 permanent jobs, good paying jobs in the county. It has the potential to put into the county tax coffers approximately $18 million a year. I think that the potential here, just with potash alone, not counting oil or gas exploration, could have the net effect as big or bigger than the uranium boom back in the 50s.
Just for perspective, how big of a difference does that make in your county operating budget with an $18 million windfall?
When you look at property tax, of course, nearly 67% of that property tax collected goes to the school district. And so we operate an $11.7 million budget in San Juan County. So it would have a huge net effect. We have the highest property tax rate in the state of Utah, but we could significantly lower the tax rate in San Juan County. It would have an effect on the property owners in San Juan County to lower the taxes that they pay and put more of the burden on these properties that produce minerals.
Great. Well, stay with us. We'll be back with the county seat in just a minute. We will return to talk about the topic of land swaps and what benefits there are for the citizens of the state of Utah. Stay with us. We'll be back after this commercial break.
If you ever dreamt of running through an old west town, searching for outlaws, hiding behind the stable, or inside the old church with your six-shooter by your side, well, your dreams have come true. Castle Gate Town Shooting Range is the most detailed, most realistic, and outright most fun shooting range you've ever seen. The North Springs Shooting Range.
We have ignition sequence start. Engines on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Launch commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff. 3 minutes past the hour.
What do you picture when you hear Rich County, Utah? Bear Lake adventure? Snowmobile action? Pristine skiing? Spectacular solitude? Well, if that isn't what first came to mind, then you just don't know Rich County. The Bear Lake Monster Polar Plunge, snowmobiling Monte Cristo, ice fishing Bear Lake, skiing the backcountry, fishing at the Cisco Disco. Come and find out what you never knew you were missing. Rich County, Utah.
Have you ever wanted to go on a vacation to Mars? What about a visit to the Old West? Impossible, right? Well, forget what you think is real. In southern Utah's Kane County, other worlds are just an ATV ride away. The Old West lives on in every sunset. From the downtown streets of Little Hollywood to the vistas that have inspired the world. Never find yourself closer to home and yet farther than you've ever been. Southern Utah's Kane County, where anywhere is possible.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is land swaps. We're focusing on San Juan County and finding out about a potential land swap between SITLA and the federal government to benefit the county. We were in the middle of the discussion. John, I wanted to go back and redirect a question with you. Why is SITLA moving away from these lands that have been, put in or come across the areas? You're talking about wilderness study areas. What's the reasoning behind it?
Our job is to put money into Utah's public schools. We've been given a very clear direction by the Utah Constitution and the legislature. The being in conflict with environmental values and the like is something that doesn't generate revenue for the schools. If we can have productive economic assets in the school trust's ownership, that money flows back to each K-12 public school in the state of Utah. It just makes business sense for us to manage productive economic assets. So we have a long-term program that we've been working on for 20-plus years of trading scenery, which the state has a lot of on those scattered sections, for blocked up lands where we can make money for our schools.
Is there any concern that after you get the swaps done, then the environmental community will turn around and come right back after you for what they just traded for?
There has been some of that, and I have to admit that we're occasionally frustrated that trades that are supported by the environmental community go through, and then perhaps a new group will come by and say, well, we really don't like what the state acquired, but that's a risk. But in general, the process has been something that's worked.
If you're looking for development, particularly in the northern part of your county, so let's say potash, why is it so important to the county to see this turned into SITLA lands? Because couldn't the developers, the people who want to come in and develop the minerals, actually just go to the federal government? Well,
as I checked with John Baza from the State Oil and Gas Mineral Leasing Department, he indicated to me that the turnaround on a oil or gas lease on state land was about 45 days from the time they received the request. He also indicated to me that for potash, the turnaround was about 35 days. Our experience and the industry's experience on BLM land, from the time they receive a request until the time that they issue the permit, can be 18 months to 3 years.
And I think our experience is maybe 4 or 5 years,
yes,
at the least, when you consider all of the different layers in the federal process. The state can just act much more quickly.
Well, the BLM has been known to put another layer on top when there becomes interest in an area, and we saw that happen in San Juan County when, after many years of frustrating work by K2O, the potash people, they were about to get a lease issued on federal property, and then the federal government decided to implement the master leasing plan, which would delay potash, oil and gas in that area another 3 to 5 years. So it's much easier for these companies to work with the state than it is for them to work with the BLM or the federal government.
So the counties are pretty motivated to see this sort of stuff happen.
Oh,
I mean, it sounds...
As are we.
Well, I would imagine. I mean, it sounds like everything's, you know, moving along pretty smoothly as far as everybody on the state side being on board. Is that...
Yes, except that we still have to get an active Congress in order to make the swap happen. And Congress these days has had a tough time acting on much of anything. So there will be a couple of years of hard work.
And that's a good pause to take. We're going to take a break here from the county seat. We've been talking about land swaps in southern Utah, actually across the state with SITLA and the federal government. And we will continue that conversation when we come back after this commercial break. Stay with us.
Check out these pictures from my vacation.
Where did you go again?
Garfield County, you know, like Bryce Canyon, Devil's Rock Garden.
Where's that?
Capitol Reef, Kodachrome Basin, Highway 12.
Wait a minute, I wanted to see more.
A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but there's nothing like experiencing the real thing firsthand. Gather your family and see the world's largest concentration of scenic attractions. Garfield County, Utah. Find the ultimate adventure.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. SITLA manages 3.5 million acres of Utah lands with the express purpose of furthering the education of Utah students while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development, all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, we distributed more than $22 million to Utah schools last year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.
Unlimited opportunity for adventure. It's all about knowing where to look. ATV adventures, rock crawling events, art festivals, and wildlife events. The opportunities are limitless. Pick your adventure in Miller County.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uinta Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
Welcome back to the county seat. We've been talking about land swaps with the school institutional trust lands and the federal government, particularly in this case the BLM in San Juan County. Now, John, when we stopped for the commercial break, you had just said it still takes an act of Congress to make this happen.
Yes.
So, you know, as an outside observer, in following what had happened in Grand County with the, you know, the bow tie arch area and that land swap, you had everybody in agreement, and it still took years and years and years to get it done.
And is taking years.
It's not finished yet.
That exchange was passed in 2009, signed by President Obama in August of 2009, and we're still a full year away from the completion of the exchange. There have been federal budget problems. There are environmental reviews that have to take place even after the Congress has acted, so it's a long and drawn-out process. I do hope that what we have learned from the Grand County exchange will help us make future exchanges much more speedy.
Any clues on you know what the good shortcuts are? I mean,
well, I don't know if there are shortcuts, but I think one thing we've learned is that there are ways to value minerals that maybe are more efficient than the process in the recreation exchange in Grand County.
I think one thing that we ought to point out, John, and I don't know if it's been your experience, but San Juan County has had a good working relationship with the local BLM staff. It's when it gets back to Washington, D.C. and east of the Mississippi River that things get pretty convoluted and more difficult. So I wouldn't want to paint the local BLM staff with the same brush that I paint the staff that exists in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I think that we've had actually a good relationship with all levels of the BLM and the department on land exchange issues in the last few years. It has just been that it is, they've got a lot of process and it's tough to work through it.
Well, thank you very much. Hopefully we can get a very positive update that things are going to move along quickly on this one and it won't be 2 decades in the making.
Well, we'll come back in 5 years.
We'd hope so.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for joining us on the County Seat. Remember, you can watch this program again. Tell your friends about it. We are thecountyseat.tv on the web. We also broadcast on many cable stations around the state, so look for us in our rebroadcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on the County Seat.